This next World Cup cannot happen without Italy. Italy have to find a way. And in many ways, I would have to say this. I know Norway have won 4 out of 4, which gives them the advantage. But this group is winnable for Italy. They just need to make sure they take care of business between now and that last game against Norway, because that might be their cup final to get to the World Cup.
The big news, of course, was that 3-0 win for Norway over Italy that led to a managerial change. They're letting Spalletti stay on for this one last match. Both Norway and Italy getting victories on this Tuesday, Ian. So Italy in better shape, I guess, than they were before we started the day.
Better shape, yes, because they got the victory. Not necessarily easy for them now with Norway 4 wins out of 4. I mean, another important victory for them. Erling Haaland got the only goal in that game, and it was a massive 3 points away to Estonia. I mean, the World Cup qualifying is going to be a very interesting and long process. I'm intrigued to see how Italy handle this now, because there's room for improvement, clearly. Obviously, the changes on the sidelines is something we'll be discussing in just a moment. But I still think when you look at the performance overall, Italy needed to get the result 100%. That was the most important, having 3 points on the board and making sure you have something to build upon whenever that next man is in place going forward.
Producer's telling me in my ear that today's actually Monday, not Tuesday. Big if true. I can't tell what day of the week it is right now, Ian. There's so much going on right now. But for Italy, the bottom line is they do get a win and they take care of business.
Yep.
Spalletti made 5 changes to the lineup. 4 of the 5 players in the midfield were swapped out from that performance against Norway. As we were watching this match, Italy didn't exactly get off to a great start. In fact, it looked like they had fallen behind 1-0, but the goal was called back for offside. They grew into the game in the second half. They took advantage of their chances. But overall, what did you make of the performance?
Yeah, not great to start this game. And actually, Moldova scored a goal that was taken back. And obviously, it should have been very, very close. Obviously, you can see he was just in an offside position. Should never have been in an offside position. And actually deserved a goal throughout this game. The way it started, Italy far too relaxed, far too composed, invited a bit of pressure. And I couldn't quite believe how much respect they actually shown the Moldovans. Moldova were very good in this game. Obviously, overall, they took 18 shots, but just didn't have the quality to put the ball in the back of the net. And that's not necessarily just down to poor finishing, which it was in many ways. It was also down to the fact that Italy were defending for their lives, some good saves, some shots that were straight at Donnarumma, but at the same time, some last-gasp defending as well. There were a number of mistakes along that Italian backline which need to be absolutely hammered out. But it was an interesting performance. Overall, I would put it down to maybe a C for Italy, nothing more than a C. They got the result, which I think was the most important thing. The performance was far from impressive. They can do so much better than that. But they got an important goal. Raspadori scoring a goal, and I think since he made his debut, he's been the highest goal scorer for Azzurri, which I think is so important for them. They need to have that one player they can rely on to score goals. But I still want to see more. I'm waiting for this identity, this true identity with this group of players. It's not happening under Spalletti.
And that's the big issue, isn't it? I mean, you and I were having a conversation off air about the quality of players that you see on this Italian national side right now. And there really just isn't that much World Cup or world-class quality that we might see from the likes of France and Spain and England and Portugal. But they've always had an identity in Italy, and it started defensively, right? You mentioned some of the mistakes we saw defensively in this match today. Doesn't have to begin there historically when you're talking about Italy?
Yes and no. I mean, listen, defensively, Italy will always be very good and very difficult to score goals against, not necessarily proven against Norway most recently. But I do think there is this passion and desire that's somewhat been lost defensively from the Italian national side. That pride. A number of good challenges against Moldova, and I'm questioning, where's that true passion? When you make a challenge, it should be at some point for a defender celebrated like a goal, because you're protecting that 3 points on the way to a World Cup. This next World Cup cannot happen without Italy. Italy have to find a way. And in many ways, I would have to say this. I know Norway have won 4 out of 4, which gives them the advantage. But this group is winnable for Italy. They just need to make sure they take care of business between now and that last game against Norway, because that might be their cup final to get to the World Cup. They're still a good side. There is no world-class player that's in there that's going to be able to turn a game for you, but they do have very good players, Italy. They just need to find chemistry and an identity. And I mentioned it a moment ago, Spalletti's not that guy. On the sidelines, I didn't quite agree with him first and foremost going in there, and I don't see any type of an identity from what we witnessed from him when he was the manager of Napoli. We saw somewhat of an identity with that Napoli side. I don't see any Spalletti identity within this group of players. And in many ways, with all the controversial decisions that have been made and controversial conversations being made, most recently comments from Acerbi, this group is missing something, certainly from the leadership front.
And they've been missing out on the World Cup the last couple of times. This note, how about this? This is the first World Cup qualifying win for Italy since September of 2021 against Lithuania. Same stadium, by the way, and Raspadori scored in that match as well. But that's a long time. I mean, we're talking about such a tradition-rich organization or program in Italy, but recently it hasn't been there, outside of what they did in the Euros. To find that identity back, the conversation, Ranieri, can he be the guy? He was a steady hand at the wheel for Roma. When they needed to find an identity, can he do the same thing for a national team, if he's the guy?
Yeah, getting the opportunity to coach a national team at this moment in his life, in his career, would be something incredibly special. I think, obviously, we heard Spalletti mentioning the word, what an honour it was to be the main man in the Italian Federation leading the national team. It was an honour. And it really is a true honour. I mean, the Italian national team through history should be celebrated. But now what do you do going forward? I think they're going to an old guard because they believe that he does have some sort of an identity that he can implement with this group of players. My biggest problem would be when you get to the big competition, do you have the players to be able to make some noise there? I don't know if they have that world-class talent that can basically get themselves to a semi-final or a World Cup final. You never quite know in a world competition. However, getting there is the problem for this team. This group of players and the previous group of players have really struggled. Non-Euros, they've had success, but the World Cup is something different. It's a different animal altogether. So Ranieri comes in with experience. He automatically gains respect. And he has that true identity, which he handed over to Roma, and he took away all the noise that was happening around Roma. Changing managers, players complaining, transfers, too much money being spent. Obviously, American ownership was brought up multiple times. Ranieri quietened all the noise down and got the focus back to the product on the field. And that's where I think it needs to be for the Italian national team. Now, we work with a ton of Italians at our Golazo network, and a lot of passionate people, might I add, as well. And rightfully so, unhappy with the Italian Federation and sometimes the players who are out there on display. Sometimes the substitutions were even complained about in that game. And I understand that because they're missing something. They're missing that true belief that this group of players, the players coming off the bench, can be difference makers. Italy needs to start believing again. Their fans need to start believing again. It's still a good group of players. They still should be able to qualify. It all now depends on what happens with Norway. And that last game against Norway could be a cup final.
And it's interesting because Norway, when you talk about world-class players with Erling Haaland, Odegaard, players like that, they seem to have some players on that level. And they are 4-0 in this process, but there's something that still seems to be a little lacking from that side. You feel like the door is still open for Italy against them?
I still believe that because I watched Norway try to go through the Euro qualifying and Scotland beat them in Norway. And they were humiliated in many ways by Scotland in that game. So I know there's a vulnerability there. But at the same time, Norway do have a goal scorer. They do have a creator. And obviously, they've got Sorloth there as well, who's not far away from that world-class category as well. So they can be good, and some young, exciting players coming through. I still would love to see Norway qualify. They haven't been in a World Cup since 1998, when I actually attended it. But I just can't imagine this next World Cup without Italy. And I do not want them to go through the playoff route. They need to try and find a way to finish top of the group.
All right, so let's take a look at the results from this Monday as it
well done,
stands.
you right?
I can remember it now. Group I, it was Norway. Look, they had to sweat it out against Estonia, but they did get that goal from Erling Haaland to get a 1-0 win. North Macedonia 1-0 over Kazakhstan. Croatia still rolling, a 5-1 victory in that one. And Faroe Islands came from behind to beat Gibraltar 2-1. Belgium 4-3 over Wales.
That's a crazy game, by the way. De Bruyne scored a winner in the 88th minute in that game. Wales fought all the way back to make it 3-3, and then De Bruyne scored a winner in the 88th minute. Crazy.